For decades, Mego collectors have wondered, what if Mego hadn't have gone bankrupt in 1982? Now, thanks to a discovery at Marty Abram's house, we have his blueprint for the future. Welcome to the Mego 1983 project. Hello, my name is Brian, and welcome to part one of Mego 1983, a print and video project based on a recently discovered binder at Marty Abram's house. A few months back, I sat down with Paul, Dr. Mego Clarke, and discussed the discovery of this binder, and I'll put a link to that video here. All of this was drafted in early 1982, and the document was outlining the company's tertiary plans for the next year. I was granted access to it and have spent the last few months creating this presentation. We will go through every category in this binder in the upcoming installments. This episode will discuss probably the most anticipated line, and that is Mego's 1983 plans for the world's greatest superhero brand. I've already covered this topic in issue 13 of Toy Ventures magazine. I just want to mention it. But my intention here is to document it in print, in video, and then as an archive on the MegoMuseum website. However, before we get into the superhero plans, let's discuss Mego's somewhat rocky road in the early 1980s. When Marty Abrams joined Mego in the late 1960s, he sought to transform the company's generic impulse toy output and enter the lucrative and risky world of licensing. After a couple of false starts, Mego had its first genuine hit in 1973 with the world's greatest superheroes. They then followed up with a series of hits and became the premier company for licensing. They were offered things before anyone else. Their growth was incredible and fast. Earnings in 1972 were a modest $200,000. In today's money, that's about $1.5 million. In 1977, the company's profits had ballooned to $6 million, which would be about 30 today. That's a massive period of growth. And during that growth, Mego spent and spent. They built a deluxe, state-of-the-art factory in Hong Kong called Lion Rock. This project was not only expensive, it was trend-settingly expensive. Mego celebrated its 25th anniversary in 1979, and the future looked really bright. That is, until the wheels came off in 1980. The 1980 Mego annual report opens with a statement about the unstable and adverse economic conditions in the marketplace. And even though their 1979 sales had been 14% higher, the company's profits had seriously declined. Interest rates on loans had nearly doubled in that year. Mego would eventually see $26 million in losses in what the press called 18 months of hell for the company. There are two significant factors contributing to this decline. The first is Mego's heavy investment in electronic games. In the late 1970s, Mego was in a rush to beat everyone to market, spending tens of millions of dollars on developing and marketing handheld electronic games, only to have demand for such products dwindle, resulting in surplus inventory and fiscal losses. Mego had a pricey deal to bring Nintendo to the United States, and it turned out to be a costly mistake. The other culprit was declining action figure sales, specifically for the world's greatest superheroes and Micronauts brands, both of which accounted for 43% of Mego's sales in 1978. However, by January of 1981, it was only 22%. Both Abrams and VP of Marketing Alan Chernoff were quick to blame this downturn on the growing popularity of Kenner's Star Wars line, or as Abram puts it, an over-proliferation of products overkilled demand. While there is truth to this, no doubt, there are a few factors that also led to this downturn. For the world's greatest superhero line, which historically accounted for 15% of Mego's sales year over year, the primary factor was a massive liquidation of products to help Mego fund a hostile takeover of Tonka. This resulted in an oversaturation of toys on the shelves, and it hurt reorder rates. While the Incredible Hulk television series certainly helped Mego, one of their big hopes during the period was Superman the movie. However, it was a disappointment. In a December 1982 interview with Cindy Schreibman, Mego's director of marketing, the Superman movie did not increase sales at all and cited the reason as too many blockbusters competing with children's dollars. Also, at this point, it's important to note that Mego now faced increased competition in the market from companies such as Fun Stuff and Remco, which were making Marvel and DC figures, whereas Mego had mainly gone unchallenged in this marketplace before. For the Micronauts, I defer to the research of Micronaut historian AcroRay Miller, who stated that Mego should have been more active in refreshing the line. Instead, they were still shipping out the same assortments and waves from 1977, which crowded out or impeded new items, and they should have retired some of the older products. And lastly, Mego had a string of disappointing blockbuster licenses that flopped. This all added up to a disaster. As Abrams said, there is just no way you can replace 20% of your line in 1 year. During those 18 months, Mego would cancel toy lines, reduce its staff by 25%, and sell its Tonka stock to pay creditors. By 1981, Mego's fortunes would slightly improve thanks to hit licenses like the Dukes of Hazzard, which only cost them about $5,000. And Jordache fashions for girls were solid winners for the leaner, more stripped-down Mego. The company focused on core items, adhering to the philosophy of primarily offering products under a $10 wholesale. The toys themselves wouldn't have any electronic features. It was back to basics. For 1982, a hopeful Marty Abrams had a laid-back approach for Mego. He mentioned, "We're not looking to rule the world, just move the product." The 1982 Mego catalog featured returning licenses, including Superheroes, Jordache, Dukes of Hazzard, and Chips, alongside some new endeavors like the Love Boat and the Greatest American Hero. On the non-licensed front, Mego was offering items such as Domino Rally, Credit Card Racers, and the Smurfs clone Clownarounds. However, there was one line debuting that year that truly would be the template for Mego's future.
Attention! You are here today to inspect the Eagle Force, the most superbly trained fighting team ever assembled. Their daring deeds immortalized in literature. An army of experts sworn to protect the weak, the innocent, the unprotected. And now the Eagle Force comes to life. Solid die-cast metal fighting figures armed with the most sophisticated in military weaponry, ready to fight evil wherever it strikes. And this is the enemy, General Mamba and the roving international organization of tyranny, better known as Riot. Soon to be introduced with powerhouse commercials like these.
Eagle Force was the brainchild of Marty Abrams, with the creative work going to comic artist Paul Kirchner and Mego R&D VP Bill Barron. Often wrongly dismissed as a clone of Hasbro's G.I. Joe, the lines were developed at the same time and are a great example of parallel thinking spurred on by a growing positive sentiment towards the United States. Both toy lines are touted as counterterrorism units. They both feature code names and a mixture of spy and sci-fi elements. For the design of Eagle Force, Abrams was inspired by the toy soldiers made by Britons and modeled the figures to be just under 3 inches in die-cast metal. Mego had been producing die-cast for a couple of years at that point and were keen to expand their production. This scale would also allow for lower-cost vehicles and playsets. Mego was known for flashy Toy Fair stunts, and Eagle Force was launched with a stunt show that brought in legendary actor Darrin McGavin as the leader of the Eagle Force. Retailers reacted favorably, and this success would lead to Mego's new focus. According to an interview with Tomart's magazine, Marty Abrams claims that Target stores sold 30,000 units of Eagle Force on its launch weekend, which likely would have made it a smash if it weren't for Mego's other mounting troubles. For 1983, Abrams wanted to start an action figure universe in the Eagle Force scale, with 4 different lines. This is not unlike what Mego did with the 8-inch format in the early 1970s. These lines included Pirates, a series of stuntman action figures called Hollywood Heroes, Microids was a reinvention of the Micronauts, and the world's greatest superheroes. By this point, Mego's Superheroes brand was in dire straits, hit by market oversaturation. The once mighty 8-inch figures were clogging the clearance aisles with broken Hulks and discounted Jor-Els from the Pocket Heroes range. The world's greatest superheroes would be reborn as Mego's Mighty Metal Superheroes, a series of die-cast figures at the same price point and scale as Eagle Force. The details of the first wave were 5 figures. Superman, he is the Man of Steel after all, Batman and Robin, Spider-Man, and big surprise, the Silver Surfer. This is probably the first time in 6 years or so that Mego launched a superhero line without the Incredible Hulk. While the figure concepts were nice, the real stars of this were the vehicles. Mego was going to roll out an armada of Batman and Spider-Man related items, including copters, cycles, boats, space shuttles, and planes. Hopefully the Batcave and Peter Parker's garage has room for it all. The project was obviously in its early stages as it consisted of sketches with notes discussing the cost analysis of the figure's points of articulation. Several concepts of the Batmobile were proposed, including what just seems to be doctored exotic car photos from magazines. The intended direction, however, is obvious. The vehicle design is more modern and breaks free of the past. Many of these vehicles would likely be used in other toy lines of the same scale, such as Eagle Force. This is common practice in the toy game. One refreshing thing is no label slapping in this. The Batmobile and Spidermobile are completely different vehicles, as are the helicopters and motorcycles. There's some really neat features here, firing missiles. The proposed Spidercopter had a feature of squirting web fluid, aka water, on the bad guys that aren't currently available. Right now I'm going to showcase some 3D models of these vehicles done by my friend Todd, aka Figure Fiend on YouTube. You really should check out his channel, and he was a massive help to me in bringing this to life. It's really impossible to know whether these would have been a hit or not and saved Mego, just because there's so many deciding factors. I will say that many of the concepts that we will explore in this book look to be really solid, and Mego had a lot of good ideas here, and they were ahead of the curve on a couple of toy concepts that actually became popular in the 80s. However, for the superheroes, I just decided to ask a question. Would I have bought this at 12 years old? The previous year, I had chose the Real American Hero G.I. Joes over Eagle Force, although I was kind of fond of them, the design. I loved the comics on the back, but I just knew I couldn't have two things. However, with the superheroes, I could see my childhood nostalgia from Mego reappearing, especially a character we never got before, like the Silver Surfer. I think that would have been a deciding factor for me, and I at least would have cherry-picked the line with a couple of my favorite characters. That is all the time I have for the Mego 1983 project this week. If you are interested in learning more, please do check out issue 13 of Toy Ventures magazine. The link is below. And of course, I would really like your thoughts on this line. Would you have gone for this as a kid in 1983? Let me know in the comments below, or hit me up at the forums at MegoMuseum.com. Thank you as always for watching, especially to the end. If you're new to this, please consider hitting like and subscribe. We do this all the time. Until next time, be well and talk toys, not other people. Cheers.